And welcome back as we go ahead and get ready to add in some lasers to our game. Now I've gone ahead and created a couple here just for some testing purposes, but let's just go ahead and walk you through how to go ahead and create your own. Obviously for this you're going to need to have your own set of sprites, and so I imported my own from itch.io to go ahead and bring in some more enemy sprites here, or even player sprites. So let's get started by first creating a hierarchy here. So I'm going to create empty. Let's call this the laser projectile. And I'm going to then choose a sprite I want to attach to that. So I got a couple cool sprites I can choose from. I think I'm going to go with this purple sprite today. I'm going to go ahead and attach that one on here. And of course you can see it's got just a generic number. I'm going to go ahead and rename that because I don't know what 12 means. So I'm just going to call this the laser. And what I want to do, of course, is make sure that this is set up the way I want. You can see it's right now showing up behind the scene here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sorting layer, and I'm going to call that projectile. I'm not going to show you how to do that because, again, you should kind of know how to do this. If not, just hit add sorting layer and off you go. So let's go ahead and make that a projectile. And you can see it now shows up here with our player. Now you do, of course, might have some issues where it may not be showing up correctly. If it is showing up on top of your player when you drag it through here, go ahead and head into that sorting layer and make sure that it is below both your player and your enemies. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this projectile and I'm going to want to prefab it. So you're going to head over to your prefabs. Let's go ahead and drag that on in. And so now you'll have a laser projectile. Now, one of the things that I forgot to do here is if your projectile, of course, is sideways like this one, you will need to go into that prefab and you want to go ahead and make sure you take that and adjust the values of it. So like for this one, because it's on the side, I'm going to go ahead and add a 90 degree to the zeta here, and that should, of course, give me that options. And because we want this to interact with the world, we're going to want to do a couple things. We're going to want to add in here a rigid body 2D because we want to give some properties, and we want to make sure that it's set to a kinematic sprite. We also, of course, are going to want to add in a collider in this case because it's kind of a capsule state. We're going to again do our capsule collider, and let's make this a trigger because we're going to want to trigger events, and we'll edit that collider. You might have to switch your capsule collider so that way it's the proper orientation, and I'm going to kind of bring this down so that way this fits much closer to the laser actual body shape. Oh, don't get like me and get too zealous here though. Bring that on over, bring it on over, and that looks pretty good. And of course we need one more thing, which is our damage script, because we want to actually inflict damage here. And so that looks pretty good from a prefab perspective, so I'm going to hit a quick save there. And once you have that set up, the next thing to do is to go ahead and do a couple other small things related to our input system. So for example, we head on over to our input system. Let's go ahead and open it up. We need to go into our fire command here and take a look at a couple things here, because you may not have this keyboard input. Right now you may only have like mouse pad, game, etc. So we're going to go ahead and add this keyboard input in. Remember, all you need to do is, of course, click this little plus right here, and then you can create your own binding. And you want to set this up. In this case, I set mine to the space on your keyboard. You can choose whatever you want. Just don't forget to, of course, make sure you hit this little control scheme for keyboard and mouse in order to have that control. Additionally, one other thing you want to check is on the fire menu, you want to change this from button to value. And the reason why you want to do that is because if it's on button, it's not necessarily going to take in button press up, button press down. We want to have a lot more control, so we're going to use the value property and set the control to any. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is with our laser here, because we're going to be interacting here with that player, we want to make sure we hit our project settings up. And we want to make sure we head on down to where we can actually control those different pieces here. And what we want? Well, we want our physics 2D. And what we want to do is in our layer collision matrix, you can see I have a player and an enemy. And where did I get those player and enemy? Well, if you didn't figure that out, it's pretty easy to think about. I have a player and an enemy prefab. So heading back to my prefabs, if I go to my enemy prefab, you can see I've created a layer called enemy. So anything that's related to the enemy is going to be tagged here. So go ahead and hit into your layers, and let's create one for a player and one for an enemy. So if you look at my prefabs, the enemy, of course, is on the enemy. My enemy laser is also tagged with enemy. The player is also tagged with player, and so is the player laser. So that is, of course, where that new piece is coming from. So back into that project settings, in my physics 2D, I want to uncheck the box that's enemy and enemy because I don't want my enemies to accidentally blow themselves up. And same thing with player and player. I don't want the player to accidentally blow themselves up. Now that, of course, should take care of most of your configuration pieces here. And again, you're going to want to duplicate that for as many pieces as you're going to want for your enemy and player. So for example, right now I have this laser projectile. If I'm not going to use it, I can delete it, or I can keep it in here. Maybe we can use it for like a special power up or something like that. But this, of course, should give you the basics that you need to go ahead and be able to have a good start to your game. Once you have that, of course, set up, don't forget to remove the laser projectile out of your hierarchy, because we're going to actually end up instantiating that in with code in our next lesson.